I promised that I would cut taxes for middle-class families by 10%. Today, I'm keeping my word.
Governor Tony Evers signed the next two-year state budget after making some changes through 50, mostly minor, partial vetoes. Republicans wrote the $87 billion budget and included a $2 billion income tax cut that Governor Evers kept. Both sides now taking credit for that tax cut. We're talking about this and more with Republican Assembly Speaker Robin Vos. Speaker, good to see you.
Good to see you too, man.
First, give me your immediate reaction to the governor signing the budget.
Well, I have to admit I was a little surprised at some parts, but not surprised at others. If you remember back in the spring, we literally took his liberal wish list, which was major tax increases, expansions of welfare. We threw it all out and we started over. Unfortunately, Governor Evers was not involved in the process at all until the end. So an analogy that one of my colleagues used, it's kind of like when you're in college and you have people working on a group project that the person doesn't show up until the last day and then tries to take credit for all the good work done by other people. That's pretty much what happened here. So I'm glad that he signed the budget because there were good things that Republicans supported, but obviously it shows that his ideas were thrown out and I guess he accepted ours.
On the tax cuts, is there room, is there a world where both Republicans and the governor can take credit for this?
Well, he gets some credit for signing it, but remember, he proposed major tax increases. We threw those out and now we had major tax cuts. So yes, of course the governor signed it, so he is able to say that he agreed with us in the end, but we pulled him kind of kicking and screaming to get to that point, so it's not like somebody who says, wow, I was with you the entire time and I'm glad we accomplished it together. We really boxed him in to the point where he accepted our tax cuts because he didn't have another choice.
Let's talk about the election investigation. You've hired former Supreme Court Justice Michael Gableman to oversee this along with 3 retired officers. At this stage in the game, what specifically are they doing?
Yeah, so the most important thing for us to do, and as I've said this before, we are not going to overturn the 2020 election. That's not what this is about. It's about making sure that when we get to the 2022 election, that all those folks who have concerns, myself included, that there were things that were done wrong in the 2020 election aren't replicated in the next election. So I want whoever wins the 2022 election for the U.S. Senate and the governor's race and the legislature, for the people to have absolute confidence that at the end of the day, the ballots were cast legally, they were done correctly, and the winner is really the winner.
To achieve that, so then what are they doing over the next couple weeks?
So they're going through, first of all, remember we had a hearing in November, so they are going through the over 13,000 emails we got. They are going through tips that they have. They're using their own investigative backgrounds to go through and look at things that happened. I think it's wrong that basically a billionaire from out of state came in and tried to buy the elections by giving $1 million grants to only some very Democratic areas, letting people run their elections. You know, look what happened in Green Bay. I think there are a lot of unanswered questions that we need to get to the bottom of. And it seems like, unfortunately, many of the folks who were involved at the local level aren't doing that. They're kind of trying to look the other way. So we have our investigation going on, hopefully at the end, all public. Then we'll be able to show the citizens why we spent the money and that it was worth the effort, hopefully.
What have they reported to you so far?
We've just started. We just signed the contracts in June, so I basically have taken a hands-off approach. We're not directing them on a daily basis. We've hired somebody that I trust inherently. That's former Justice Gableman. We have investigators who have the background and experience to do it. So we want to let them follow the leads where they take them, and I think that's more important than anything to make sure we have the most robust, but also as independent a process as we can to get to the truth.
It appears former President Trump has been keeping an eye on this. He's talked about Wisconsin and you a little bit. The contract with Justice Gableman was signed a day after President Trump. On the eve of the convention came out.
It was actually signed before.
It was signed before.
It was signed before.
Okay, it was announced the day of the convention. Former president came out and said you and other Republicans were working hard to cover up election corruption and preventing a forensic audit of the results. At the convention, you faced some backlash from your fellow Republicans because of the president.
Well, the good thing was, I think there was maybe a smattering, and I would say that out of the hundreds of people who attended, a few who really tried to make something out of this, because the vast majority of people know the good things that we're doing in Wisconsin to make sure the election was held fairly. We are doing a forensic audit. We are doing our investigation. We certainly have been trying to crack open the bad things that were done by some of these local elected officials that truly go at the heart of democracy. So,
do you think those would change the results of the election, though?
I don't know. I think it's unlikely because, once again, I think it doesn't matter if the results would have meant more votes for the president or more votes against it. If it's against the law, we should hold people accountable to say you got to follow the law regardless of where it takes you. And I think that's where people think that somehow this investigation is about trying to turn the election in one way or the other. It's really about people following the law and making sure that when you cast your vote, you have a guarantee, as much as humanly possible, that those are being counted fairly and that no one gets any kind of an advantage.
On the investigation, WisPolitics our partners got a hold of the contracts, and they reported about $72,000 at least for these initial contracts. Justice Gableman told the New York Times, he said, like a significant percentage of my fellow citizens, I am unsure of who the winner of the November 2022 presidential race in Wisconsin was when it is considered in the light of only those ballots that should have lawfully been counted. So when you take what he has said, especially to your critics, how do you justify that this is more than politics and not just trying to appease President Trump?
Well, my job is not to appease President Trump, former President Trump. My job is to make sure that the citizens of Wisconsin have confidence in the election, and I think they will. I think we picked somebody who has, who was a DA, who was a circuit court judge, who was on the Supreme Court. We picked investigators who have experience investigating in different parts of the state, but have a lifetime of experience. So they're going to come up with their own conclusions, and I think that's what we really want. Unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle just want to sweep it under the rug and say everything was fine. Well, clearly it was not, and that's why I think it's our job to do the due diligence so that every citizen knows at the end of the day that we can determine that the election was held fairly or it wasn't, and changes need to be made, and that in 2022 the election will be held fairly, and whoever wins does so fair and square.
When will these results be made public, and when will the public be able to see what's happening?
Yep, my goal is to have the report available in October. We want to give them 3 months to really go in, look at the tips that are given. We're going to announce an email address and a tip hotline if people want to be able to report things that the investigators will follow up on, in addition to the stuff we already have. So I think we're going to do a robust process. Democrats can report things too if they saw things that were wrong. That's the goal, but we certainly want both sides to have confidence in the results wherever they lead.
Before you go, let's talk about the Bucks for a second. Yeah. We just talked with Peter Feigin. It was 6 years ago this month. You'll remember this fondly. The legislature approved, after some intense negotiation, state funding for the new arena. I'm curious what you would say now to those the opponents of the state funding for the arena, and some who may still oppose it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the investment was worth it. We said at the time it was cheaper to keep them, and I hope that the Bucks, obviously one of them now running as a Democrat for the U.S. Senate, would give credit to Governor Walker, because he was the person who, along with the legislative leadership and the county and the city, put the deal together. And I think that's exactly the way things are supposed to go. Unfortunately, with our current governor, as you know, we hardly ever meet with him because he's chosen a hands-off approach where he lets us make the decisions and he just, at the end, kind of comes in to take the credit. So it's just a different way of doing it. But imagine if Tony Evers had been governor instead of Scott Walker, the Bucks wouldn't be playing here. And that's exactly what this shows me, that a leader at the top of the food chain is really important to make sure real things happen. And that's why we've kind of been a little bit lackluster under Tony Evers.
Are taxpayers seeing a return on this investment?
Oh, there's no doubt, because remember, it was cheaper to keep them because just the income taxes that are paid by all the players go to help fund the arena, and the results are pretty clear. We know that the revenue that's being generated for local government is also significant with the sales tax and all the things that are being sold. So let's hope the Bucks go all the way and win the entire championship, because that'd be good for our state.
We'll end with that, something I think everyone can agree on, right?
Let's hope so.
Assembly Speaker Robin Vos, good to see you in person.
Thanks,
Thank you for your time. Up next, a first in Wisconsin, how betting on pro sports and events could become legal by fall.